Welcome to this episode of our program Daily Debate. As usual, we will be discussing a very important debate. Today we'll be speaking about this very exceptional visit by the South Korean president to Egypt, the first in 16 years to Africa. This visit has taken him already to the Middle East, to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. President Sisi today received the South Korean President, Moon Jae-in. Definitely the President, along with First Lady Mrs. Intisar Sisi, have received the South Korean President and his wife and the accompanying delegation, where the national anthem of both countries were played, and the President received an official reception on the red carpet. This visit to Egypt, or the Korean President visit to Egypt, is seen as a turning point in relations between Egypt and South Korea. The South Korean President's visit comes as part of a regional tour. As I said at the very beginning, the President and South Korea's President discussed political, economic and military relations between the two countries. President Moon's visit comes within the comprehensive partnership agreement signed between the two countries during President Sisi's visit to Seoul in March 2016. In the 5 years since the agreement was signed, political and economic relations between Egypt and South Korea have reached new heights, covering almost all aspects of cooperation. President Sisi and Moon reviewed joint projects which the two presidents endorsed in 2016 and discussed a raft of new projects as well. South Korea considers Egypt a center of gravity for the business and politics in the Middle East and Africa. The South Korea's economy strategy in recent years have been focusing on reinforcing relations with Middle Eastern countries, particularly Egypt, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Tonight, we will be focusing on the Egyptian-South Korean relations in light of this very distinguished and extraordinary visit by the South Korean President, and will be discussing areas of cooperation between Egypt and South Korea, as illustrated by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi during the press conference he held with the South Korean later after the meeting. We'll be focusing on the prospects of relations, of future relations at this upcoming stage. Before we delve into our discussion, let me take here a top story of the day. And First Lady Mrs. Intisar Sisi said that today she was honored to receive Mrs. Kim Young-suk, wife of the President of South Korea. Mrs. Intisar said that the meeting was full of rich discussions on supporting youth and empowering women in all fields, in addition to our talks about the Egyptian state's efforts in economic and social development and the great role the young people play in this aspect. She said that in their conversation, they discussed the Egyptian state's measures to provide a decent life for all Egyptians through a series of government initiatives which the Egyptian state is paving its way towards the new republic. The First Lady added that while she welcomed the honorable guests of Egypt to their second country, she would like to extend her sincere thanks to Mrs. Kim Young-un for her kind feelings and kind words about Egypt, which confirm the depth of the distinguished relations and friendship between the two countries and peoples. Before we start with our discussion, let me here first take this report and President Sisi who talks with visiting South Korean President. We'll see the report and we'll come back for more discussion.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and First Lady Intisar al-Sisi received on Thursday South Korea's President Moon Jae, the South Korean First Lady, and their accompanying delegation in the first visit of a South Korean president to Africa in 16 years. The two leaders discussed a number of regional and international issues of mutual concerns, as well as political, economic, and military relations between the two countries. After the meeting, a press conference was held for the two presidents. President el-Sisi emphasized the importance of working to activate the comprehensive cooperative partnership between the two countries in a way that is commensurate with the capabilities of the two countries and is in the interest of their peoples. The head of state also said that they agreed on the importance of continuing political consultation mechanism between the two countries, the Joint Ministerial Committee for Political, Economic and Technical Cooperation, headed by the two foreign ministers, as well as the two ministries of finance and the Joint Commercial Committee, due to their importance in advancing and strengthening cooperation relations between the two countries in various fields. The president also stressed on Egypt's keenness on attracting Korean companies and investments and creating a conducive atmosphere for Korean investments and major development projects and infrastructure projects, as well as projects in the fields of energy, mining, transportation, communications, and information technology that goes within the economic reform program in Egypt. The head of state said that they also agreed on the importance of strengthening joint cooperation to support the Egyptian vision aimed at entering the era of Fourth Industrial Revolution, as well as intensifying coordination in this context, whether through the establishment of a branch of the Korean University of Advanced Science and Technology or cooperation between the Ministries of Communications and Information Technology in the field of using artificial intelligence in the government, especially with the imminent move to the new administrative capital and Egypt's aspiration to make a huge development boom in this upcoming stage, similar to the successful Korean experiment. President el-Sisi also said that they discussed partnership opportunities between Egyptian companies operating in Africa and Korean companies, and the promotion of investment in Africa, especially in the field of infrastructure, highlighting the enormous opportunities offered by the start of the African Free Trade Zone that would lead to a significant increase in investment and trade flows between African countries and the international community. The president said that the meeting today is the culmination of their joint efforts over the past period to advance bilateral cooperation between the two countries and to develop an integrated strategic framework and a common vision for various aspects and areas of cooperation, and ways to advance them in the coming period that confirm their common political will in this regard, and paving the way for a new phase of partnership that links between the two countries. For his part, the Korean president said that both presidents agreed to make a lot of efforts to enhance cooperation between Egypt and Korea and to work hard for the progress of Korea and Egypt towards more prosperity in the future. Moon said that Egypt and South Korea enjoy comprehensive partnership in various fields. He described South Korea's relationship with Cairo as distinguished, stressing that Egypt is a central country that has supported peace in the Middle East. Earlier, presidential spokesman Ambassador Bassam Radi stated that the meeting dealt with ways to enhance bilateral relations, especially economic, investment and trade, as well as cooperation in the development of the railway sector, which is among the important priorities on which the Egyptian state relies on making a qualitative leap in the development process that is currently taking place with accelerated steps. Ambassador Radi added that the two presidents also discussed prospects for maximizing cooperation between the two countries in the localization of the electric car industry in Egypt, in addition to cooperation in the field of communications and information technology, digitalization, tourism, infrastructure projects, and mining, as well as discussing the engaging South Korea in the implementation of Decent Life Initiative, as well as cooperation in the field of energy of all kinds, in the light of the two countries' keenness to diversify their energy resources. Advanced military, Radi added that the two leaders reviewed the developments of a number of regional and international files of common interest, as the meeting witnessed consensus on all of these issues, foremost of which are the developments of the Libyan crisis, noting that President el-Sisi asserted Egypt will continue its tireless efforts with the Libyan parties to hold national elections. In the same context, the President affirmed Egypt's permanent support for all mechanisms that guarantee the security and stability of the Korean Peninsula. For his part, the Korean President stressed that Egypt is a cornerstone in maintaining security and stability in the Middle East and Africa, especially with regard to the Egyptian moves to reach a political settlement of crisis in the region, as well as its tireless efforts led by the President to combat terrorism and extremist ideology, as well as spread the values of coexistence and tolerance in the region, while strengthening bridges of dialogue between African and Arab countries with all of the world. After their meeting, the two leaders witnessed the signing of a number of agreements in various domains. The agreements include cooperation between the two countries in trade and economic partnership, as well as cooperation to implement national projects in Egypt.
Welcome back. Reading more into this extraordinary visit of the South Korean president to Egypt, his first to Africa at large in 16 years, or the first by a South Korean president to Africa in 16 years. We have with us over the phone Ambassador Mervat Etellewy, former Assistant UN Secretary General, former Assistant Foreign Minister, and former Secretary General of the National Council for Women. Good evening to you. Ambassador Etellewy.
Hello.
Good evening, Your Excellency.
Good evening.
Yes, we're speaking here about the South Korean president visit to Egypt, and this is a very distinguished one, a very extraordinary one, as I said, in 16 years to Africa. How do you view the visit's significance, importance, and the timing of it?
It is a very important visit. As you said, since 16 years, we did not receive a visitor from Korea at this level. And the discussion between the two leaders contain very important conventions and treaty in all front, electricity, technology, economy, and all of this, the latest technology in these fields. We know that Korea is, they are very advanced, and they are people who like the others, and they are decent people. I've been personally there. I was treated very happily, and they look at Egypt politically as a very growing up country with all the magnificent projects that President Sisi introduced into the country in 7 years, starting from Suez Canal to many other projects. So the Korean, as very hard working people, they themselves they give voluntarily Saturday, half a day of Saturday, and extra work to help Korea get advanced more and more. So this is in the own will of the people. Industrially and technology-wise, they are among the first category of countries that always make its manufacture very advanced and using the latest of the technology, robots, and all of these things. So I am happy that more convention, more agreement, economic agreement, and not in one field, but in so many fields. Basic infrastructure, cleaning water, desalinating water, agriculture, industry. And this is
yes,
a very...
Ambassador Tillawi, we're speaking also about a very important vow today, which is the South Korean president vowed to help Egypt in the fourth generation technology, and we're speaking here about particularly the industrial revolution, the fourth generation or the fourth industrial revolution, plus education. And those two fields also were very much stressed on and emphasized during the two presidents' press conference. How do you view how Egypt can really benefit from South Korea in those two fields?
I think we can greatly benefit from them. They are serious people. They mean what is the meaning of time. They don't lose time at all. They work very hard, and they work in the latest of the technology. Not only robots and so on, but introducing so many development in medicine and the gadgets that monitor the pressure, the blood pressure, the situation of the lungs, the situation of the many parts of and organ of the body. It is amazing, in fact. Mm-hmm. And this will benefit Egypt, since Egypt started to make its own medicine built on what the European and Asian achieved. So it is not starting from zero, but it started from what these countries reach already. So it is an important visit, and the cooperation in all of these spheres are very useful to Egypt, because Egypt is also geared toward the new technology in all this field. So
Ambassador Tillawi, there was also, beside the economic part and the help or the vow of South Korea to help Egypt in many areas, including education, artificial intelligence, communication and information technology, energy, desalination of water, and all the projects they spoke about, plus, of course, they are extending their hands to help in the Decent Life Initiative. Also, there was the statements of the South Korean leader praising Egypt's efforts as a cornerstone of stability to the Middle East and Africa. How do you view the statement of the South Korean president? How do you view how South Korea look at Egypt's role?
2 points. First one is Egypt is the hub and the entrance to Africa, because Africa need trainers, need professors, need a very highly educated professor to deal with this new technology. So any Korean company wants to go to Africa, they have to take with them Egyptians to open the road for them and to facilitate their task there. The second thing is the young people that we are now having so many training places for them on the new technology and the robots and whatnot. This will be very useful. And they have come to Egypt because they found that in 7 years you managed to perform so many industrial, agricultural, technological projects. It is very difficult to be performant in such a short time. This is another important point.
Yes, indeed.
It means that Egypt is serious, and not only serious, but they hate the time by having a record time to implement the project. I remember Angela Merkel when she asked the Siemens to build a similar project in Germany in the area of electricity, like the one you did in Egypt. The man in Siemens told her, but you have to bring me the people of Egypt who were working 24 hours. So this is also noticed by the foreigner, and they appreciate that, appreciate your way of managing, they appreciate the way of performing the project in no time or in record time, which is a new phenomenon in the world.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Ambassador Mervat Talawi, former Assistant UN Secretary General and former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you so much for your input and for being with us tonight over the phone. This definitely, this visit is seen as a visit that will turn relations into a turning or point in the relations between both countries, and it comes within a comprehensive partnership agreement signed between the two countries during President Sisi's visit to Seoul in March 2016. I guess that today seeing the South Korean president in Egypt was a landmark shift of partnerships Egypt is initiating with the whole world, diversifying its cooperation and coordination with many in many areas. To continue on with our discussion, we have with us over the phone Ambassador Raouf Saad, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening.
Your Excellency, this is a very distinguished visit that we have seen here by the South Korean president, and it has a number of of topics that were really topping the agenda of the talks. How do you view the talks that were made between the president and the South Korean president? How do you view the aspects of mechanisms of cooperation between both countries at this upcoming future?
Well, that's a very long question, but nevertheless, I'll try to focus very much on the visit. The visit is very significant. I mean, it shouldn't be taken as just a regular visit, but it is significant in so many aspects, particularly, you know, that South Korea is a case by itself. It's a very special case of a country that developed from a very poor economy to a country which is qualified as the new industrialized country among the NICs, what they would be called the NICs, new industrialized countries. And you know, in the 50s and 60s, they are the economy was much weaker than the Egyptian economy, but nevertheless, you know, they made it. I mean, they have moved that, and that's why it is significant in terms that how to benefit from their experience. Meanwhile, Egypt has become a case by itself, maybe a little bit late, but nevertheless, with the restructuring the economy, with the economic reforms, you know, we were able to re-innovate, you know, the economy in order and to become a dynamic, a vibrant economy. So we have two cases where we have a meeting of views on the importance of the relation, you know, and from different aspects, particularly economic and commercial. Two is South Korea, you know, knowing the South Koreans in general, they take decisions with a very calculated criteria, and they know when they are coming to Egypt how important it is to develop the relations with Egypt. One, because of the big market here. It's 105 million people, and with the you know, the investment opportunities that are emerging, and you know, every day with the opportunities are unfolding, you know, not only in the traditional areas but in industrial areas. It's plus that, you know, they are targeting, as the president of South Korea mentioned, that they are targeting Africa. Africa is being targeted by many international players, and they know that through Egypt, you know, that, you know, they can have a better access to Africa. On the Egyptian view, I think if you look at the figures, although we are talking about the increase in percentages, you know, of trade, but the trade figures are rather modest compared to the abilities that each country has. Second, I think Egypt is very much interested in the South Korean investments. And here, investments, we are not just looking for the FDI or foreign direct investments, but I think that the South Korean investments should be associated by technology. And here I want to flag, you know, the importance of technology is not just to have a transfer of technology. I think what we are looking for, and this is the President Sisi is pushing in that direction, is to have indigenous technology. Because, you know, transfer of technology is something that you can just have it and then it expires or whatever. You have no control on the industrialization process. Because let's just give an example. You know, what is the indigenous technology? For example, the car. You know, without an engine, which is the know-how, you know, you cannot make a car. So what we are looking for is to have an indigenous technology benefiting from the progress and the development that South Korea has achieved. And I think this visit will be a reopening of the relations between the two countries. And because, you know, Egypt is not the same country that they used to look at. I mean, Egypt is being looked at as a very successful experience, and as been realized, recognized by all international organizations, that due to the economic reforms, Egypt was able to cross the COVID crisis. Crises one after the other,
Yes,
and still where it was able, among the only country in Africa, North Africa, and the Middle East, and the Mediterranean that was able to cross the first 2 years of COVID, with a positive growth rate. It's less than it has before, but thank God and thanks to the economic reforms that are continuing and deepening, that by the certification of international organizations, Egypt is coming back, by starting this year and later, to its the growth rate that it had before the COVID. So I thought that this visit deserves our attention, not only by the government, but the private sector. I think the private sector now is very much should be encouraged and invited in order to play a stronger role in the economic and investment cooperation between Egypt and South Korea.
Indeed, Ambassador Saad, and we're speaking here about a number of agreements that were signed today during the visits and after the press conference that was held by both presidents. And we've also heard during the press conference some of the statements made by both presidents about both leaders' keenness to bolster cooperation in different fields, particularly the help South Korea president spoke about in helping Egypt towards its fourth industrial revolution, to help Egypt in one important initiative like Decent Life, to help Egypt in energy as well. Plus, of course, the information and the communication and information technology. How do you? Yes.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yes.
I just wanted to say, that if you look at what has been happening in Egypt over the past 5 years, you would realize that we have started a path which is leading to a different present and future. And I strongly believe that we are on the verge of having, a renaissance, from in all its in economic, social, and political. I think we cannot just focus on the economic aspect,
yes,
but that the social as well as the political aspects are they are just one package. And I think we have to follow and review what the statements made by President Sisi in the past week, on how we look at the future, and how we care about the people, and the decisions are being taken in order to parallel the economic reforms with its own associated difficulties, together with the social aspect, and with the realization of the government that the marginalized, strata of the people have been or have suffered a lot because of the reforms, and this is, quite brave from the country to recognize. But meanwhile, they are not just making statements, but they are undertaking programs, in order to meet the social needs. So, the visit should be looked at within the strategic approach of Egypt towards, the widening and deepening its relations with the countries from all over the world. And we have to have a market study of, where the centers of excellence that we have and where the centers of excellence that other countries have, in order to produce a meaningful relationship that goes beyond the formal ties.
Yes. You pinpointed your finger on a very important issue, which is how the visit illustrates the diplomacy of the new republic, but also it's the constant diplomacy of Egypt, which is built on opening to the whole world. On the political side, because we have we've spoken so far about the economic side, on the political side, how do you view the Egyptian-South Korean relations? How would it be a win-win situation? How do you view this visit at the backdrop of all the circumstances passing in both areas?
Well, in fact, you know, I'm focusing on the economic aspect, but I'm not underestimating the importance of the political importance and the significance of the visit from the perspective that, you know, that Egypt in a region which is on fire. Let's put it this way. I mean, if you look around, you know, the whole region with you know, is going through a difficult time, and this region is very important, you know, not only for the countries of the region, but also for the countries from the outside world, but due to the huge resources that it has. And if you look at, you know, the situation in the Middle East, for example, you'll find that, you know, Egypt stands almost, you know, in a very distinct situation from stability, institutionally, politically, economically, socially, and for the countries from the outside, in order to maintain the relationship with the region in different ways, they need a partner. And if you look at, you know, our small region, that you find that Egypt is the strong candidate to be a partner with other countries in order to develop stability and from a political point of view, from an environmental point of view, from climate change. We are talking about the Green Deal. I mean, there are so many aspects that, you know, are associated with the stability of the region, and that's where the political side, you know, goes beyond the crisis. But nevertheless, the crises that are taking place in the region, I mean, Egypt is the able country that is able to contribute significantly to the stability of the region. See what has happened, you know, our efforts in Libya, in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen. I mean, all these countries and the whole region, Egypt is the strong contributor to the stability. And that's why, you know, the countries from outside the region care to establish stronger political relations through different mechanisms, committees, and, you know, through the official visits like the one we had, in order to help and support Egypt's efforts to stabilize, and which will have returns on the countries of the region as well as for the outside regions.
Indeed. Plus that the South Korean president today spoke about Egypt's role in fighting terrorism and extremist ideologies, and that was a point of cooperation in different fields. Ambassador Saad, here I have 2 minutes left for me. How do you view aspects of cooperation at this upcoming stage? What do we need to focus on at this upcoming stage?
Well, I don't think that, you know, one should identify, you know, very specific areas. I think we need there are obvious areas where particularly in the area of industrialization, we are talking about, for example, I just mentioned the Green Deal. I mean, the climate change. I think the electric cars. We have started a new strategy for the future. This is an area, and, you know, the Egyptian market is always welcoming, and, you know, the South Korean cars. So this is an area, but I think we have to go beyond the traditional areas of cooperation, and that's we need, you know, to have market studies. I mean, that to, as I said, to define the centers of excellence, because it's not a matter of only to increase your experts, but even sometimes it's good to have the opportunities by importing. It's a very complicated process, and I think industrialization should be the first candidate for cooperation. But you have and for example, we have started now a new effort for mining,
yes.
for gold, for that. These are the new opportunities.
Renewable energy also.
New and renewable, and there is something, a very, very important area where I think we should have the South Korean investment. There is the Suez Canal, the economic zone, the Suez Canal, because this is not only it's a hub that has no parallel in the world, and through the economic Suez Canal economic zone, I think the countries who are investing there, they can take their exports and services to East Africa, to South Asia, and the Gulf. So I think this is an area that is a big part of the future of Egypt and the future of its relations with the outside world.
Indeed. Ambassador Raouf Saad, former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you so much for being with us over the phone tonight and for your great input here. The visit of the South Korean president started on Wednesday and would end tomorrow on Friday. And during this 3 days visit, the South Korean president is to hold a number of other important meetings, and we would be covering all the upcoming or all his visits and meetings at on those days until the end of this visit. The visit itself is a qualitative leap in relations between Egypt and South Korea, and illustrate the constant policy of Egypt and the constant diplomacy of Egypt, which is opening up to the world and extending its hands as long as it is having a kind of mutual interest and mutual respect. I guess that takes us to the end of this episode of our program, Daily Debate. Our next episode will be on Sunday. Until next Sunday, it's good night.